All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a White Lotus of Light live stream. And the title of which is, give me just a second because I didn't have this ready. It is called False Flags, Resets, and the Molochian's Last Gasp. Pride goeth before the fall. And so the reason that I have that title is because of course, we are now in June, and it is LGBTQ Pride Month. And so I just want to kind of remind everyone that, a lot of my viewers are more of a more conservative bent, and a lot of people have sort of gotten frustrated with this whole CEI, shoving it down our throats, LGBTQ stuff, right? There's the big Target controversy and so forth. But what I want to remind everyone, just to start this video out, is that, the LGBTQ plus community is not our enemy any more than Muslim people were our enemy in the early 2000s, or the Vietnamese people were our enemy in the 60s and 70s, or even the regular German people were not our enemy really during World War II, and the Chinese people currently are not our enemy. Now, the CCP may be our enemy, and there may be bad things that happen from people of various nationalities or sexual orientations or whatever, but people are not bad simply by being a member of a group, even if that group is being used cynically for social engineering. And I just want to real quick say, if you'd like, so we're going to have questions in the second half of the show, which will probably be a little bit longer. It'll probably be about 30 minutes of this thing where I'm just, saying this announcement that I kind of want to make, and some of the stuff the angels told me a few weeks back. And then we're going to move into a question and answer section. So if you want, to go ahead and ask Q&A, go ahead and ask questions, and then to ensure your question is answered, a super chat or super sticker will ensure that you get your question answered. And so if you also want to put your just say hi in the comments, I will give you a shout out. And on that note, I don't know if Morpheus is still here because he was here very early, but Morpheus is in the chat. I got Susie Gemini in the chat. She's a patron. Thank you so much, Susie, and to all my patrons. We also have John Sand. Yeah, that's interesting. He said, I'm just going to put this up real quick. He said, Biden fell down against the Molochians are about to go down. Yeah, I love that. Actually, I mean, that's a big part of what this show is talking about. I just did an interview or conversation with Peter Champu, which I highly recommend. Also, you may want to, for that specific video, because it's like quite detailed and technical about ley lines and geomancy, you might want to go back, I would highly recommend, unless you're very familiar with geomancy, ley lines, and Peter's work, that you probably go back and watch my initial conversation with him. But during that initial conversation, and now he talks about how we are moving into a different segment of our rotation around the central galactic sun, and that coincides very nicely with the 2025 Kali Yuga end that I've talked about many, many times in this channel. So that's the Molochians going down part. And so anyways, I am just going to go ahead and launch into what I want to say here. So as I said at the beginning, we need to remember and keep in our hearts that these people who are being used to do these false flags, these people who are almost always very mentally disturbed, they're not our enemies. That doesn't mean they should be allowed to get away with whatever they are doing, but we should always remember there's a hidden hand behind them. And that is the actual people who are causing the problems. And that's, the Davos crew. It's the Molochians I talk about all the time on this channel. And with that preamble and understanding that the point here is that we actually need to really avoid having hatred stirred in our hearts during this Pride Month, where it's going to be absolutely shoved down our throats by the corporations because of this CEI scoring thing that they're doing, which is why Bud Light and Ford and all these companies are doing these way over the top gay and trans things that are just like unnecessary. The whole Target thing. It's part of a demoralization campaign actually to destroy classic American brands by forcing them to do that if they want to get any working capital from BlackRock and Vanguard. And so people who've been watching this channel for a while may recall that about 6 weeks ago or thereabouts, the angels told me to tell everyone to look out for a false flag event that's related either to LGBTQ community, meaning like an attack on the LGBTQ community, or LGBTQ folks attacking conservatives. And this is being done, of course, because they want to stir up a what do you call it, a false flag, right? Or I mean, they want to stir up a civil war via false flags. So I'm just gonna see here what I can share. Gosh. Man, I really hate StreamYard for this specific thing. It's just such trash. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this, and it's going to create this horrible ripple effect, but I want to start here. Okay, hopefully, I pray you guys can see this. It should say on the left, these are the two trans shooters. One happened in Nashville. The school shooter, Audrey Hale, was a trans man. I'm not sure what Audrey's, whatever chosen name post-transition was. And honestly, I think the dead naming thing is not really relevant when we're talking about people who've done this kind of thing. And then we have Anderson Aldrich, who shot up a Colorado gay nightclub. A gay nightclub, keep that in mind. This person identifies as a trans woman. Now, these people are not evil people. They really, really aren't. They're just very, very deeply confused people. I mean, the acts that were committed are evil and unforgivable in themselves. But what I mean is, neither one of these people, I think, woke up being like, I'm going to cause all these problems in the world. They were duped and deluded and controlled almost certainly by intelligence, right? So that happened for a while. And then very quickly, they moved on to kind of the next thing. And the next thing was all of a sudden it's, everything is, and I'm trying to look for sharing. Why did it suddenly, there it is. So I'm going to try this again. And my apologies. This thing is just so annoying. Oh, here we go. Now it's going to let me do it. All right. So then, of course, we heard, white supremacy. And there's this just absolutely insane gaslighting nonsense of the rise of Latino white supremacy. And we have Mauricio Garcia, the Texas mall shooter, and they claim this guy's a white supremacist. You got a lot of melanin to be a white supremacist. This is like smacking of that Dave Chappelle blind KKK guy who doesn't realize he's black. I mean, like, get out of here. It's literally a joke. I mean, it was literally a Chappelle show joke. Then we have Sai Varsheath Kandula, the White House U-Haul gate crasher, another supposed white supremacist who was carrying a Nazi flag with him. What? I mean, like, come on. Like, is anyone really buying that? But wait, it gets weirder because, you have those very strange events, obviously, again, just reeks of false flag, the media spin, the nonsense, the trash explanation for everything. And then you have this. We had a situation where we, let's see if I get this one in now. This thing is such a pain. I do apologize, folks. There we go. So we had a bomb threat supposedly towards a Target for Pride. Well, then it turned out that it was a hoax. It turned out that the emails for the bomb threats came from LGBTQ plus activists. So interesting, bomb threats, right? LGBTQ, but it's coming from an LGBTQ plus activist. And then look over here, this white supremacist who drove a U-Haul into a White House barricade, all of a sudden they drop all the charges against this guy? Are you kidding me? Why would they do that? Unless, of course, a deeper investigation of this man would for example, lead back to intelligence, right? Because that's what really happened here. Like, it's actually infuriating to me, just straight up infuriating to me, the degree to which a broad segment of society is completely at odds with their own sensory experience, to where they can buy things like an Indian man and a Latino man are somehow white supremacists. Ding! Like, I suppose those trans people were straight supremacists, right? I'm surprised they didn't trot that narrative out, because they're just like into such gaslighting nonsense at this point. It's just like patently absurd. But we need to be aware that this is actually a serious situation. And part of the reason that it's a serious situation is you have, stories like this that I find deeply concerning, and also extremely hard to believe that this could happen without there being some help from intelligence. There's just no way that you lose 60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate in between Wyoming and California. Also, that's a great place to do a heist if you're intelligence or whatever, and you're setting the stage for some naughtiness, right? Something explosive. It sure is a nice stretch, Wyoming to California. There's lots of places in there where there's no people, so you can see and pull it off. So you see a narrative being formed here, perhaps? Right-wing, white supremacist, targeting LGBTQ, ding, right? Which is obviously the FBI, obviously the CIA, obviously these Molochian scumbags. So if any of these events happen the same day, we need to be on that and telling our normie friends. In fact, we maybe should even start telling our normie friends, look for a big event this month that's going to be blamed on right-wingers. Just start getting that message out there, because I can almost guarantee it's going to happen. Why do I think it's going to happen? Well, you have all this narrative prep being done the past 2 months. But here's the real deal. Here's what they're worried about. And believe it or not, there's something hopeful at the end of this. And the reason they're doing this bullshit is because this month, they're also doing this kind of stuff. Let me get this one. And again, apologies. This just takes forever. It's StreamYard. There it is. Okay. So the pandemic treaty, they're going to try and ratify that again this month, and they really need people not paying attention to this, right? The Molochians are still trying to do, they have the creativity of a bunch of dead pond scum floating on the pond, and all they can do is run it back. Now that the luciferians are increasingly cutting them loose and no longer planning for them, the Molochians' plans are just, to quote Tropical Thunder, they're going full retard at this point. They can't come up with anything new. They just can't, because these people have zero creativity. Zero. They're super good at inverting things and turning them into their opposite and mocking the sacred, but they just have absolutely no clue. And I just realized I've had the wrong microphone on this entire time. Holy smokes. So I'm going to put the new microphone in and get that going. I apologize if it's been hard to hear. Okay, good. It sounds like people have at least been able to hear me. I'm going to see if I can get the right microphone on here. Gosh, I don't know. Well, anyways, I'm just going to go with this, and hopefully it's, it said sounded fine. Oh, thank God. Okay, yeah, because I didn't have my really good, like, professional quality mic plugged in. It was just this little tiny mic up here on my webcam. Anyways, so they have the pandemic treaty, but wait, there's more. And this is where actually the hopeful note comes in. So there's another thing going on here this month, which is this month is the prep month, the final prepping for the real deal, the biggest thing going on Earth, much bigger than all this pandemic stuff, everything else. And in fact, the raison d'etre for why the pandemic and all the rest of the false flag, all the stuff going back to 9/11, it's all leading up to this. It's all leading up to this. They want to have the central bank digital currencies. It's what they want. In the first dry run, which it's maybe not a true CBDC, but it is, it definitely is in that vein. Fed now, they're going to drop it on in July. So this is the final prep leading up to that. So they're almost certainly going to need some kind of economic or financial crisis in order to usher in these CBDCs or Fed now as some kind of answer to that. So how is that hopeful? Well, there's a couple of different reasons that's hopeful, and I'm going to just real quick share this classic thing. I can't take credit for coming up with this, although I did slightly modify it from other versions that I've seen, and I think this one's better, which is just, I want to remind you, they wouldn't need this level of false flags and propaganda, which is just all of it's off the chain. They wouldn't need that if the situation was hopeless. If there was total control, total lockstep among the elites, and they had it in the bag, they wouldn't need propaganda and false flags and nonsense. And in fact, the increase in propaganda and false flags is an awesome sign, because it means we're no longer in the frog boiling stage. If they were truly in control, they could frog boil us for another century. Why not? There's no reason not to. Just slowly but surely take away liberties, turn the crank, right? Ratchet effect, all that stuff, and people wouldn't be able to stop it. Now I see people say, oh, they're doing that stuff because they have it in the bag. Is that really why? Does that really make sense? They wouldn't need propaganda if they were already successful. They wouldn't need all this stuff. And another thing I want you to consider, there is a huge amount of effort being put out right now to create this new financial system, which is what all of what's going on this past 20-something years is about, really, is they're trying to get in central bank digital currencies as part of their plan to create the global government. They keep trying to push forward the global government. They keep getting blocked. And so they are creating this vast financial system that has the capacity for billions of people to use it. Now, let me ask you a question. If you were the group who was designing this financial system, why would you bother if everyone's going to be Klaus Schwabbed, right? If everyone's going to be in a pod with a chip in their brain, totally matrixed out, unable to do anything, eating bug food, right? You wouldn't need a vast financial system, right? You could do it on a Yahoo chat room using 1990s tech and just have, you know, the Palavoncinis, the Orsinis, the Rothschilds, whoever, right? The Saxe Coburg Goethe, the Windsors. You could just have them in a chat room and they could say, oh, I'm doing the trade. If they really thought that everyone was going to be in a pod in 5-6 years and with the brain chip in, why would you create a vast financial system? You wouldn't. However, if you wanted to usher in a vast new financial system and a vast new global technocracy, the Luciferian plan, you would need that capacity. You would need that capacity to be able to absorb all this new trade that's happening in this so-called quantum financial system that's scalable up to billions of people. There's absolutely no need to do that if the Great Reset was a real thing and was actually going to work. So the people who are creating this financial system, who are actually creating it, right? Not the ones who have the vision of the one world government, the Molochian idiots, right? But the very intelligent Luciferians, those are the people who are actually developing that system. They're making it for billions of people. Why? Why would you do that if you were planning on putting 99% of humans in a pod, forcing them into the metaverse and putting a brain chip in and feeding them bug food, right? You wouldn't. Now, let's say you're the Luciferians and you want to usher in your new system and take over. The Great Reset is fantastic for you because it's the ultimate boogeyman, right? That makes your false light answer and solution look incredible by comparison. Consider Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset guys, you'll eat the bugs, you'll see nothing and be in the pod, and the German master race, horrible, right? Like they found like the least appealing human being on earth to be the figurehead for that. Like literally triggers everyone's alarm bells. This guy's literally, his parents were Nazis, and he sounds like he's just straight out of the Third Reich and looks like it to boot. All you need is a monocle on that guy, and you have, you know, maybe with some lightning bolts at his lapel, and you have literally the 1930s villain, the same villain that Hollywood's been warning us about for decades, or programming us about for decades, right? But let's say that you have that model that scares everyone, right? The Great Reset model. But then instead you offer this new financial system where maybe there's a jubilee involved, something like Nasara Gasara. There's a universal basic income. You just bought all the plebs. You just bought all the level 1 thinkers by just giving them free money. They literally do not care about anything else. They wouldn't care as long as the system works and they get free money, sold to the lowest bidder kind of thing. What about for the more sophisticated people like people in this chat, or people who are maybe just a little more intelligent and discerning? Well, bust out the anti-gravity, bust out the free energy, and round up the people who were involved with the pedo stuff and make a big trial show about it. Man, when you compare those two visions and say this group of people that we're having now Nuremberg 2.0 trials and saying how bad they were, but maybe not digging into how the L's and the M's, the Luciferians and Molochians, have worked together for 6,000 years, maybe just kind of, editing out the Luciferians' hands in the way that they assisted the Molochians for a long, long time, just kind of, just editing that out, letting that hit the cutting room floor, right? But then you say, ooh, look at what these guys tried to do to you. Remember that Great Reset thing? They were going to put you in the pod. They were going to put a brain chip in. They were going to harm your children. Scary drag queen story hour, all this kind of stuff. Like, look what we offer instead. A reasonable amount of liberty. Sure, we have total surveillance. Sure, we have digital IDs. Sure, we have ruthless capitalism and technocracy and a meritocracy, but isn't that better than total slavery and pedos running things? And 99.9% of people are going to go, yeah, that's way better. And a certain amount of people, when you flip the switch over to this Luciferian system, are going to go, wow, like this is a vast improvement, and like these guys are great, and I want to tell us more about our Lord and Savior Lucifer, right? Like you can then actually trot that out as a religion saying, this is who saved you from that. That's the false light. That's what the Luciferians are going to offer, and it's going to work for a vast amount of people. And it's very clever and very intelligent. But the Molochians don't realize that they're getting rope-a-doped, the way Muhammad Ali would be like, oh, I'm on the ropes. Oh, I'm struggling. Oh, you're wearing yourself out. Oh, keep punching away. Oh, no, I can't win. And then boom, haymaker. That's what the Luciferians are going to do. When they flip the switch, when they turn it, it's going to be over very quickly, probably months or maybe 2 or 3 years. Yes, the Molochians will run. They'll cause some problems. There's going to be mad chaos when it happens. But when the Luciferians turn the corner on these people, it's going to be over very, very quickly because natural law will be on their side, number one, first and foremost. And number two, they have all the advanced technology. So regardless of whether it happens from a financial crash and then a fog of war that emerges from that, or they shut down the internet. By the way, also look for them saying right-wingers caused blackouts. That's another thing I've been seeing prepped. So that's another way that could happen. And be sure you put the word out saying that that's bullshit as well, right? That's something that they're laying the groundwork for nonsense. So financial crash, internet goes down, right, which could be blackout or mass DNS attack, the so-called cyber polygon that World Economic Forum was warning about. Or the third one is the fake alien invasion. If any of those three things happen, that's when the Luciferians, I believe, will make their move. And that's looking like it's lining up for, sometime around 2025. So that means that we are in the late hours of the Molochians' reign. And while I am very hopeful, and I do believe that everyone, that we are going to emerge into this better time period, and for all their many, many faults, and we need to be very savvy and understand that these are not harmonious, loving people, the Luciferians are vastly better than the Molochians. And it'll be vastly better under their rule than what we've dealt with the past 6,000 years. That said, we need to be discerning and savvy and see what's happening. And I was about to say something else, and then I just stumbled and tripped over myself. Oh, yeah. So we're at the tail end of the Molochians' reign. They're desperate. All this false flag, all this nonsense, increasingly transparent propaganda is the Molochians doing what they've always done without the help of the Luciferians. The Luciferians are actively undermining them by giving them bad advice. One way or the other, they're getting desperate, and you can see it with the massive uptick in propaganda and the massive uptick in false flags. They are actually desperate. It's not that they're totally in control. It's quite the opposite. If they were totally in control, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. None of us would know they existed, which was the case basically prior to 2000 for 6,000 years. If there was any even thought that there was like, Satanists or Molochians running things, it was always via some medicine woman that we better burn at the stake, or it's the Jews maybe, or it's the Muslims, or whatever propaganda, or maybe it's the Indian people, and that's why we have to colonize India for Queen Elizabeth, right? Like, it was always mysteriously people who had no power at all were the ones who were claimed to be Satanists, right? So we've only really very recently discovered their machinations. I would say, some scholars, to their credit, figured this out long ago. But when I figured it out in the fall of 2001, basically nobody knew about it. I would say 1 in 10,000 people or less knew about it. Something like that, maybe 1 in 100,000, maybe 1 in a million globally. It was not very common at all to understand that dark magicians ran the planet. Now it's kind of out in the open. It's like you can actually have a casual conversation, even with a normie friend, saying, wow, have you heard this right-wing theory that? And then you can put it out there and people go, wow, that's insane. But I mean, like, if you even uttered that 20-something years ago, people would think you're nuts. And it would have like huge, huge repercussions. So it's known now. And that changes everything. And the thing is, the vast majority of the time they ruled, they did so from the shadows. And that's where they do better work, because people, when they see Molochians out in the spotlight, very quickly are turned off by them because of the horrible, horrible vibe they have. So they are desperate, and that means that they are going to act like a cornered animal. And that means that, the angel said starting in March when the financial crisis began, we are now in the window. We're in the window of major and increasing in speed historical events that are going to start domino and tumbling like a snowball going down the hill, getting bigger and bigger, and then eventually just turning into an avalanche of events. Let's see. Pretty soon I'm going to release a prophecy that the virtues, the angels of prophecy that they gave me about what they term the bottleneck event. I had Versan Al-Jara of Black Swan Capitalists on the show a little while ago. Great interview if you're interested in cryptocurrencies. And he said that he knows from a former MI6 agent that Project Looking Glass was real. And Project Looking Glass talked about a bottleneck event where all the different timelines collapse and something happens that's spiritual in nature that wakes people up. So the virtues gave me a prophecy about that I'm going to release in the next few weeks. I just have to figure out how to do it, and I have to re-listen to it again, because the only beings that I will channel anymore are angelic beings. I won't channel like Hindu gods and that sort of thing anymore. Although, they're fine. There was a time when I would even channel darker things in order to try and unwind people who had like made a demonic pacts and that sort of thing to try and help them out of that. But I won't even do that anymore. And so the only time I very rarely do channeling is pretty much almost exclusively with the virtues. And I did do a channeling last Friday, and they gave me a prophecy that they want me to share publicly, but I just need to edit it a little bit and kind of go through it and maybe figure out some visuals on it. But it has to do with this upcoming bottleneck event, which seems to be like it's going to be sometime in 2025. And it'll be an event to where something happens to where there's very little free will other than our internal response to something that's going to happen outwardly. And that will be true for everyone. The Molochians, the Luciferians, the Most High faction. I got the sense that it would be like almost a moment in time where everyone would pause and reflect on everything that's happened since the fall of Atlantis and all their lives, but especially anything that they've done in their current incarnation, because this is a clearing of the karmic books right now, and that everyone will reflect on that in that moment. And your internal response is going to determine what happens on the other side of that bottleneck. And that bottleneck is also the moment, it seems, where we switch from like Kali Yuga to Dwarpa Yuga. I'm not exactly sure the date of this event. It seems like it would be 2025. So there it is, and that opens it up now for, we're just going to go ahead and do question and answer. I'm going to real quick do some shout outs. and get some of this green smoothie on my mustache for extra professionalism. All right, so let's see. I already did a shout out for Morpheus, Susie Gemini, John Sand. We got ZI Oppenheimer. All blessings to you, sir. Relic One. Buzzwords, LOL. Let's see who else we got in the chat here. Macman 1895. Sardine Plunging. Let's see who else we got here. And Glenn Evatt. All right. And if anyone else wants to shout out, just throw a comment up in the comments, and I will give you a shout out. All right. Let's see. So I did show this one other. It's worth a repeat. John Sen said Biden fell down again, so the Molochians are about to go down. I love that. Hey, as above, so below. Could be some truth to that. Thank you, Mr. Oppenheimer. All blessings to you, good sir, and to your family, and to everyone watching this, and to all beautiful people on this planet. Buzzwords, LOL. Yeah, it's so ridiculous. Yeah, let's see. Don't be a useful idiot for the cultural Marxist. Peaceful non-compliance is the way. Yes, 100%. Let's see. Shameful that they go to these lengths, says Susie, and think we can't see it. I know. Well, I mean, like, it's gotten really sloppy, too. Have you noticed how sloppy these false flags are and just nonsensical in the face of it? It's almost like someone's giving advice to do false flags that are just stupid in order to reveal the fact that false flags happen. Part of it is that they're trying to do that. George Orwell, how many fingers am I holding up? 1984, right? 3. It's 3. If you don't see 3, then you're not loyal to the party. You need to see 3. And they beat him and torture him until eventually that looked like that to that person, right? So there is a bit of that, right? They did this with the trans nonsense, right? Like, it's totally reasonable for 6'3" Leah Thompson, who weighs 220 pounds and had male hormones, and suddenly now they're a woman and they're just blowing up women's sports, even though they're ranked 183 as a man. That's perfectly reasonable. That kind of like in your face gaslighting inversion. I mean, that is that 1984 4-3 thing, but it is also, I think, a sign that Luciferian elements in the intelligence agencies are setting the Molochians up to have the rug pulled out from under them. So, yeah, they hope people just don't have time to look. Absolutely. Susie Gemini says, clowns they are. They are indeed clowns. Sounds good. Little like you're in a shower. I don't know whether putting in this new microphone worked or not. Oh, man, I can't believe that I forgot to plug in my good microphone. Someone said, you sound all right. Let's see. Sean said, I know you already talked about this, but would you be able to go into karmic resets a little bit more in depth? Yeah, man, that's a great question. And please do, I want to open it up for Q&A now. And we're just going to run this till probably 3 o'clock West Coast time. It's about another hour. If that, we'll see. I mean, if I get enough questions, we'll run it that long. But if things kind of peter out, then we'll just let it end when it ends. So the karmic reset. So what was explained to me by the angels is that it's somewhat counterintuitive, but when you go from the Kali Yugas into the Dwarpa Yugas, that moment marks an accounting for all the karmas that have happened since the fall of the Golden Age and downward. Most of that karma being accumulated, of course, during Kali Yuga, when we're the most brutal to one another, when we're the most detached from source, when we're the most in materialism, when we're the most likely to fall for the egregious lie that you only live once and that's it, right? That whole belief that allows people to be so easily manipulated. We're far more likely during the Kali Yugas to commit atrocities and do all this kind of stuff, because if you look at the entire universe as a school for the spiritual evolution of an immortal soul that reincarnates over and over and over and over again, and that you move from the tiniest little like hydrogen atom with its whatever a level of self-awareness, and then you go up and you become, a molecule, and then you become a single-celled organism, and then you become a multicellular organism, and then you become you can graduate to demigod status, then god status, planetary deity status, and then maybe like major planetary deity status, probably not on the same planet. You'd probably have to be a new planet where you became that. to eventually an intergalactic deity, certain deities, a bunch of the Hindu pantheon plus Lucifer are off of Earth. They're on a variety of planets, so I've been told. And you move up from that, then you can move up to like this sort of galactic level god that determines that level of the galaxy and works with other galactic level gods to kind of oversee those galaxies. And eventually you become the Nataraja. Eventually you become Shiva, dancing, and every time you open your eyes, a new universe is created. Every time you close your eyes, a new universe is destroyed. You get to that level of creation, and then it loops around again. And at any time, someone can go back to source and have true liberation and be completely free and choose not to reincarnate anymore and choose to instead be reabsorbed back into the mind of Brahman. There's a very famous saying, which I'm going to put up right now, that says, the world is illusion. Brahman, which means universal consciousness, alone is real. The world is Brahman. So I sometimes refer to myself as a Gnostic sacramentalist. And what I mean by that is that oh my gosh, why did it not? It didn't give periods. Let's see if I can edit that. Okay, I'm going to hide that. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to copy that again if I can. I cannot copy that again. Oh, I'm going to retype it. The world is illusion. Brahman alone is real. The world is Brahman. Okay, so I call myself quite often a Gnostic sacramentalist. And what I mean by that is I am of the personal opinion, and you don't have to agree, viewer, but I'm just sharing my belief. And this ties into the question I was just asked. Well, good enough. It looks better if it's 3 stanzas on top of each other. But if you look at this, the world is illusion. That's the belief of the Gnostics. The Gnostics say all of this is the world is illusion. They then claim that the demiurge creates the world, and they have a very negative attitude towards the demiurge. I believe that the demiurge as a concept exists, but it changes the illusion of the world depending on the yuga you're in. So the demiurge of the Kali Yuga is indeed very dark. And you can say that Moloch is the demiurge of the Kali Yuga, is the phase that the demiurge is in on this planet right now. I don't like it because it still has this negative, you're imprisoned vibe to it. In the East, they call that Maya, or the illusionary nature. Like Buddha, when he sat under the Bodhi tree, he was tempted by Maya to go back into the world of illusion. And he brought hot ladies with him, which almost broke Buddha's resistance. He said if there was another temptation that was as intense as the draw of beautiful women, then he would have never been able to make enlightenment. And brother, I give you a high five for that. I agree. That is one of the main things that probably keeps me holding back on that. But so this phrase, the world is illusion, means that everything is illusionary in nature, which the Gnostics say. Brahman alone is real. So the Gnostics would say Sophia, probably. But Brahman in Hinduism means the universal consciousness, the God mind. That alone is real. Nothing else is truly real other than the mind of God, from which then everything emanates. But the third stanza is the world is Brahman. So let's go through it. So you realize the world is illusion. Very few people realize this. A lot of people get stuck in that. Oh, the world's illusion. Oh, nothing matters. I don't need to be a participant because the world's illusionary. Brahman alone's real. So now I'm going to do spiritual bypassing. I'm going to maybe get into that witnessing state, and I'm going to witness what's happening in the world, and I'm going to get stuck there. And a lot of the great teachers like Adyashanti and so forth talk about the stage and the danger of it because so many get stuck there. What's much more difficult is to have that level of realization, and then you bring it down and you anchor it by recognizing that the world is Brahman. Why would God go to the trouble of creating all of this if it was just for us to go, oh, none of this is real, it's fake? That is really a lot of effort for someone to have that realization. But if you realize the world is illusion, that the mind of God alone is real, and you feel that and you learn that intuitively, and then you move into the world, which you recognize is still Brahman, then you can act as though this is all sacred. You can have that level of detachment that will help temper your responses to things. by recognizing the world is illusion and that the mind of God alone or Brahman alone is real. But by recognizing that the world is Brahman, you become an active participant in this sacred experience of this world. And so as we go to the golden age, as we move out of the Iron Age, we're about to line up. We're within 300 years, which is exactly when a crossover between Yuga phase shifts would end, and where we're well and truly in the Dwapara Yuga, right? To where it's like just utterly established at that point. Right around exactly the moment when that happens, we cross the galactic cross is 0 degrees conjunct. It's at 0 degrees Capricorn on September 21st in approximately 300 years from now. And so that's kind of like the final marker. However, I've been told that this period of the ending of the Kali Yuga is much more significant than the next 300 years. The next 300 years is more like just sorting through things in the world, changing and things kind of like playing out and so forth. But this is it. This is the moment right now. And what's happening is all these karmas are coming up collectively and individually. And, for our species, for individuals, for just everything to do with humanity, all our karmas are coming up right now. So you're meeting a lot of people that you have real strong karmic bonds with, both people who you might have noticed you run into more people who have a hatred for you for no apparent reason. Or what I'm finding in my experience is it's much more common for me to run into people that I instantly love, that I just fall in love with them right away and they fall in love right away with me in a way that just doesn't make any sense. And it's because we're being brought together to work out karma. And there's all this talk of a great reset. And what the angels told me is that the greatest reset is taking place. And the greatest reset is the clearing of the karmic board. And what that means is that the Molochians are going to pay very dearly for their crimes. I would not want to be any of them, even though their higher selves chose to come down and play the role of the bad guy in order to increase the spiritual evolution of everyone else. They signed up for the karmic reaping that'll come for that. And that'll be a very challenging experience, I'm sure, to go through the next cycles that those people are going to have, or those souls are going to have to go through based on their actions as Molochians in this time. Like, I can only imagine that that's quite awful. And so all this karma is coming up for us to be addressed. And as much as that we can bury hatchets and heal wounds, heal our own personal trauma, get our own house in order, integrate our shadow, right? Step into the divine masculine or divine feminine, depending on which resonates for you. Likely it's probably based on your physical body to a large degree, although we all have aspects of both. In other words, I'm going to be stepping into, and every day I try and step more deeply into divine masculinity. But part of that process of healing traumas and dealing with that shadow work is you have to acknowledge and integrate your dark feminine and dark masculine. For me, I had a lot of, because of the abuse and trauma I suffered, I behaved very much in the dark feminine. I used to. I would be very passive aggressive. I'd be very manipulative. I'd be very not taking personal responsibility for things. I would play the victim all the time. I would try and get out of things and not deliver. I wouldn't want to have anyone kind of relying on me because, I just wanted to kind of skate through life, which is really a dark feminine energy. And then I would oscillate between that and to explosive anger and hyper objectification of women, not like healthy, but like, okay, well, here's a perfect example. I used to have a pornography addiction for like 27 years, which the angels helped me break, which is part of how I know the angels are angels. And that's an example of the kind of stuff that I had to take responsibility for and integrate. And that was part of my healing of my trauma. I couldn't just heal my trauma without addressing the two elephants in the room, which is my dark masculine, like rage-aholic behavior and like being unhinged and maybe being slightly misogynist in certain ways. Certainly hyper-objectification of women was one of the ways that manifested for me, or like being psychotically competitive. I'm still very competitive. I still love women. I still find women hyper alluring and so forth, but my relationship much healthier and completely different. I basically have nothing to do with the dark feminine anymore. That's just not who I am anymore, and thank God for that. But that part of me is like kind of filed away and integrated. And so that's what this karmic reset is about bearing the hatchet with others, figuring out your karma with other people, and then preparing yourself for that thing that I was mentioning earlier with the prophecy from the virtues of preparing yourself for the events that to come in the next few years. And especially, I don't know whether the bottleneck event is a singular event. That's what it seemed like, or whether it's events that stretch for 3 years. But there's going to be a period of time to where things become very destined and fated, and that we will have minimal free will because we all have to go through and play our parts within that grand drama for the spiritual awakening of humanity. And where we do have total free will is what we're doing internally. And therefore, getting your house in order before that happens will make that experience much less painful, much less challenging, and much more likely to yield very positive results on the other side of that bottleneck event. Okay, so that was an ultra lengthy answer to that, but it was a great question that deserved. I ought to do an entire show on the karmic reset. So someone said "your," so I must have pronounced "your," or I must have spelled "you." You were fixing your own thing, Mac man, not mine. Okay, so Zai Oppenheimer, who takeover voting begins in July as well. I think it's this month. I think it's June, and that's what I put that up at the beginning of the show. Yeah, so the Fed now, New World Order. Yeah. As soon as I saw LGBTQ month in my calendar, I had a feeling something would pop off. Yeah, I'm afraid so. It really does seem like they're going to do some kind of nasty false flag. I like this straight Goldfinger. I'm curious, Relic One, what do you mean about that? I do, of course, love that. Well, that's brilliant, Goldfinger. I do love me some classic James Bond. Little Inferno Masculine coming out, or old school Toxic Masculine, I guess. Now you are so right about keeping up with this freight. They know how to keep up with it. I'm in trucking. We're constantly watched, especially hazmat. Yeah, so he's referring to that thing where they misplaced, ding, with the extreme ding. They misplaced or lost. You know how rail cars just decouple and nobody notices on a rail? 60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate. There's no fucking way they don't know where that is. That boxcar is certainly tagged up. What they did is they stole it with an intelligence agency without question. There's no fucking way that gets stolen unless an intelligence agency is involved, or else it would have been instantly stopped. There's like a 0.01% chance that some idiotic right-winger that the FBI set up to do it, but I don't think so, because I think they would have probably just caught him in the act if that was it. What I think is they plan, unfortunately, to do a really horrifying false flag, probably at a Pride event. So I would avoid large Pride events, probably, and just like driving near them and so forth, because unfortunately, I think there's a very high chance they're going to do something, hopefully not with that nitrate, because that's a lot. It was way more than they used at the Murray building. It was 60,000 tons. It's just like, whoa, or maybe 60,000 pounds. Anyways, it's a lot. They could do a lot of damage with that. And so my prayers are up that maybe us talking about this prevents it, right? If enough of us are talking about it, if we smell a false flag coming, it really is important that we get out there and we pound the frickin' table about it, because it does create the chance that they will review those communications and go, ooh, too many people know if we do this, they'll connect the dots and we can't do it. This is an all-in move and it's dangerous to us. So we definitely want to be telling people to look out for a blackout that they blame on right-wingers, which will absolutely be the government, right? Or the intelligence agencies, the Molochians, could even be foreign agents, doesn't really matter. Or something to do with LGBTQ, almost certainly an attack on LGBTQ would be my guess, and then followed by reprisal attacks, both of which will be very likely to have been done by intelligence, right? So we need to not buy into those narratives, and we need to not hate our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. More and more lesbian women and gay men are coming on board with being against the pernicious sexualization of children. There's a TikTok or Instagram called Gays Against Groomers. And so I want to remind everyone that a lot of the LGBTQ community are totally reasonable people that are our allies. They're good people, and we need to not demonize them. Those shooters earlier, obviously, those people did a horrible atrocity, and they will have to stand in judgment for that. I think it's really tragic, both obviously the horrible loss of life of the children and so forth. I mean, that goes without saying. But I also think it's very sad to see these mentally ill people being again and again and again manipulated by intelligence agencies to commit these atrocities that are used to divide the rest of us. I mean, it's so pernicious and evil, it's almost impossible to overstate. So just remember that the LGBTQ community has a huge number of people who they see this pedo agenda, they see they don't agree with trans women competing against women in sports or having access to women's locker rooms and stuff like that. I have quite a few gay and lesbian friends, and they're adamantly opposed to all those things. So just because someone's gay or lesbian or whatever, even trans, I have a trans family member. I love them very much. They're a wonderful person. Remember, all these people are very often agree with us. And even if you're very much against the trans thing, which I am, I love my niece/nephew. I'm very sad. I believe that they're just gay and not trans. But we got to remember that we don't need to blame these people who are the victims of this propaganda and brainwashing, but instead blame the forces like CEI and Davos, which is behind that shit. All right, let's see what John Sand said. Is it possible to wake up someone aligned with this long-running Molochian energy? Thanks for all you're doing. Gosh, John, I honestly don't know. I think that at this point, most people who are going to awaken have awakened. Where I hold out any hope at all for the people who are super on board with COVID and, they're putting up a Ukraine flag one month and a rainbow flag the next month, the folks who are just plugged into the hive mind, I think the only way they wake up is severe personal, tragedy. Like they themselves or others are hurt by the, something that hits them very hard and shatters that rigid mentality. But I've been told that the vast majority of those people will not wake up, and that they incarnated at this time in order to add texture and depth and emotion to the events that are happening for those of us who are going to continue into the Dwapara Yuga, and that most of those people will not be joining us in the Dwapara Yuga one way or the other. I know that's very grim. That includes a lot of my family, by the way, the vast majority of my family. So believe me, this hits me personally as well. Keep trying, but bless you. I get no traction with this stuff anymore. I just don't bother. Let's see here. All right. Josh Whitehall. Hey, Josh. I don't think I've given you a shout out yet. So can you speak about the contract that the tribes of Israel made with their God and how that has benefited them in their conquests throughout the world? Josh, I would need you to be a lot more specific about that. And also, just based on your description here, I am not familiar with what you're saying. I'm not sure if you're talking about Moses coming down with the tablets or what. And if I don't know it well, because it has to do with religion, I just have a general stance of I don't touch things that I'm not really certain about if they have to do with large scale religions, just because out of respect for the people who believe these kind of things, I don't know. This one also touches on, a potential theme that I really dislike, which is, I'm not saying you are doing this. I'm saying going in this direction kind of leads to that anti-Semitic cul-de-sac, dead ends, Molochian firewall from realizing that it's the Venetian black nobility behind things, and people get caught up in the anti-Semitic bullshit. And so I don't know the specifics of your question. I don't feel that I'm probably equipped to answer it. But if you want to clarify further down, I'll see. All right. MacMan1895 says, similar to Sufi thought. I am super, super, super intrigued by this comment. MacMan, if you are still around, please elaborate on that. I will say that Sufi, I can't share that. Let's just say that's very interesting. Sufism is one of the three strains of the Abrahamic faiths that I really resonate with. Not every aspect of it, but to some degree, along with Kabbalah and certain elements of Christian Gnosticism, which I kind of described how I'm a Gnostic sacramentalist, that everything is sacred, but everything is also illusion. And so I'm not super duper well versed in the Sufis, but I am certain that I've had past lives as a Sufi. I really, really resonate with Sufism. And there's something very important to me, and that the angels have told me that I simply cannot reveal. Has to do with higher order magic. That has something to do with the Sufis. I'll just say that higher order angelic magic. I can't really go into any more detail on that. So please, if you're here in the chat, MacMan, please expand on this. So Josh Whitehouse says, what does fourth dimensional negative world look like that will be the fulfillment of the Molochian karmic debt? Well, I'm of the opinion that when people sin, by which I mean the original meaning of the word sin, which is to miss the mark, right? It's not that you were naughty and you rubbed one out when you were 14 looking at a Victoria's Secret magazine, right? I'm dating myself as a 90s teenager saying that, but I was a 90s teenager, so there you go. So that is not sin, right? The sin means to miss the mark. And how do you miss the mark? Well, the mark is what Yeshua told us, what Jesus said. Love thy neighbor as thyself. That is the deepest and ultimate teaching that Jesus brought us, in my opinion. Many people disagree. He's the one savior, blah, 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 Christianity, right? For me personally, the very important thing that Jesus brought forward, which is directly from the Most High, and is a distillation of everything that you can learn about the Most High and being in resonance with the Most High. If you understand in the depths of your being, love thy neighbor as thyself, it all comes together. And what that means is not, my neighbor Paul, he's kind of an asshole, but I'm going to bake him a pie and go over there and go, hey, Paul, you're an asshole, but here's this pie. I'm loving thy neighbor as thyself. I like pie. I'm going to give Paul a pie, even though he's a jerk, right? No. It means to recognize that Paul is God. You are God. Everything we witness, everything around us is God. And it's all one. I am God. Paul is God. Everyone is God. Everyone listening to this is God. And I don't mean in a sense of you're a God, get all like whacked out on power and think you can just do whatever the hell you want and harm other people. That would be completely missing the mark and actually the ultimate sin, to put yourself at the center rather than the creator, right? That's kind of the sin of the Luciferians, right? And the Molochians both. That's something they have in common, is that they try and put their God at the center rather than the God of creation. And so loving thy neighbor as thyself is to recognize at the deepest level that they are you and you are them. And if Paul, your neighbor, is a jerk, right? Then what's going to arise for you is, man, why is Paul acting that way? He probably has some hurt. How can I go help Paul? Or maybe Paul's a homeless guy. What did Jesus do? He would have built a house, Jimmy Carter style, right? What would he have done? If someone's hungry, you feed them, right? Better to give them a fishing pole, but if they're a little weak right now, probably give them the food, and then you can give them the fishing pole and teach them, right? To give clothes to the person who doesn't have clothes, to help try and cure the lepers and the sick, right? To take care of. Why would you do that? Well, it's because Jesus recognized that all those seemingly external figures were him, and he was them. And so it's automatic then to take care of them. It's automatic you'll never want to exploit the planet or people on the planet if you understand that they are you at the deepest level. And so when you don't understand that, mark and you sin, right, which the Molochians have you miss the mark, you completely misunderstand it. I believe that why we have a concept of hell is this idea of the life review. After your life, before you disincarnate and then choose to reincarnate again or hang out in the sort of heavenly realm or whatever, if you've really, 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 really missed the mark, you're going to spend a lot of that time in that life review and purification. And it's not like you sit down. I know there's some movie in the 90s where some guy sat down and literally watched a video of his life. I don't think it's like that. I think it's much deeper in that. It's more like a hologram. You probably experience it really intensely. And there's even talk of like a fire that purifies your soul, right? Hellfire. That gets burned out of you, that experience, you have to really come to terms with it and integrate it, and also accept that set up your karma for future incarnations, and that's part of that missing of the mark. And so they're going to have to fully experience what they did to everyone else and pay the price for that in future incarnations. So I don't know if that answers your question. Fourth dimension, negative world. I mean, you know, some people talk about this splitting that's occurring. That is also possible. It's also possible that the Molochians will just vibrate at a different vibration. And so they will, that Earth will split from our Earth experientially, and we won't be able to interact with them other than the way that like mystics or you know, or psychically gifted people can communicate with angels, for example, or demons or elementals or nature spirits or whatever. That'll be the only way that you can interact with those Molochian people is through some sort of ritual and focused psychic connection, but that physical interaction will no longer be possible. This is one theory that's out there. Not saying I ascribe to it. I'm also not saying I dismiss it as impossible. There's too much stuff pointing towards the split that's occurring that I think that it could be that we go through this bottleneck, and for those of us who are Luciferian or Molochian, we pop through and we experience the Dwarpa Yuga. For those who are Molochian, they go beep, and they go into that Ahrimanic 8th sphere, downward, down through the Qliphothic tree of death, bunch of incarnations, eventually become alien grays is one theory, and then they try and come back to now to try and like get genetics, all this kind of stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of theories about that bifurcation, and perhaps that's what you're talking about. I'm open to all those theories. I just don't know exactly. It hasn't been shared with me. So Relic One writes, in the last year, I've had just about every karmic traumatic archetype in my life reemerge one after another, so I identify and feel that. Yeah, many people are experiencing this. This is the greatest reset, the karmic reset. There's very likely to be some sort of grand jubilee. Like I believe debts are probably going to be erased. Do not run up a credit card debt, because that is also a karmic debt. That's another thing, is that in the Hermetic as above, so below, the financial system, because the financial system represents life energy and time in many ways, right? So you see all this debt. The system is bogged down with debt right now, the financial system. That is a reflection of, or a fractalization of, these inner karmic debts. So I recommend that you get out of karmic debt and also out of physical or financial debt. Don't run it up going, oh, well, Ian said in a few years that all the debts will be wiped out, so I should just run up my credit card. Do not do that. Get out of debt. Actually, that should be the first thing you do financially, if you can, is to get out of debt. Because even that debt is a debt that will have to be paid in some kind of sense. And so, yeah, this is a period of time where karmic debts and financial debts are all coming due in a big way. China just called in all these debts for their Belt and Road Initiative, which shows that the Chinese are a little shaky too. So let's see. Oh, you were reacting to the uns die Klaus Schwab impression. Ja, uns, we will all be in the pods. Yeah, everybody wants this deep down. That's what gets me off. I'm a bug food guy. What a freak that guy is. All right. Throwaway AV Clubber. What an interesting name. And you just said LOL. I'm curious what you were laughing about, and shout out to Throwaway AL Clubber. Oh, it's Getting Brains. Hi, Pete. Starting from the beginning. Hope everyone's having a good day. Fantastic. Living Free. Living Free writes, Hi, I came from Sam Tripoli's channel. I'm intrigued by your content. My question is, do you believe... Hey, by the way, I'm going to be back on Sam's show. We're recording on June 14th, I think. And then it'll probably come out like a week later. So end of June, I'll be on the Tinfoil Hat podcast again, which I'm very excited about. And I hope to have Sam on the show because I actually want to have a conversation with him because, God, I think laughter is so important right now because of the whole 3 chalices that the virtues talk about and other reasons. So anyways, my question is, do you believe a man or woman can be completely detached from their desires and achieve God consciousness? Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Ramana Maharshi, the great sage of India. If you want really, really deep work and you're tired of this world and you're ready to not incarnate anymore and you want to re-merge with Brahman consciousness and also help to lift up the consciousness of the entire planet, it's not for everyone. It's especially not, in my experience, for people who have heavy amounts of trauma. I went really far in non-duality. Advaita Vedanta, it's called. I went really far there. I'm going to write that just so you can look at it. So Advaita Vedanta is non-duality, and it's a particular strain of Hinduism, and Ramana Maharshi and Ramakrishna and let's see, what is that guy's name? Papaji, and what's the third one? Or what the other? Nisargadatta Maharaj, I am that. They all wrote about this achieving non-duality, this enlightenment consciousness. And so, yeah, it's absolutely achievable. It's very, very difficult. I believe you may just be able to transcend it possibly, but I think for most people who have heavy amounts of trauma, they're going to reach a level to where earlier in the chat I talked about Brahman alone, or the world is illusion, Brahman alone is real, the world is Brahman. A lot of people get stuck in that witnessing state, and they don't have what Adyashanti, that's another good person to look up, Adyashanti, Adyashanti. He comes from a Buddhist background, but he moved to a non-duality thing. I believe he's enlightened. David Waldman, I can absolutely vouch for because I have sat with him in real life. I hope to have him on my show at some point. But there's these non-dual teachers out there, and they can teach you that. To where you can choose to not reincarnate, to break the wheel of samsara, as the Buddhists say, and not reincarnate. And a lot of people are going to be choosing to do that at this time. So, yeah. All right. So Macman says, Ibn al-Arabiya is the main Sufi I read. Also, The Secret Practice of the Sufi Freemason is a book I've been intrigued with for years. There's a major pull to that area and thought for me. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Sufis. They also point to a fundamental aspect of reality, which is spin. Basically, everything spins. There's spin in everything. Like creation doesn't exist without the process of spin. And I'm going to go ahead and, by the way, I'm just going to make an announcement here, guys. And MacMan, I don't know if anyone knows it. I'm done with flat earthers. You see this globe back here? Whoop. Let's see. How do I? Gosh darn it, it's the opposite of what I want. Okay, so I'll put it right there and move my head this way. Oh, I can't do it. There it is. See that globe right there? Yeah, that's the general shape of the world. It's a toroid. Everything comes into existence because of spin. If you're a flat earther, look, I don't care. Believe whatever you want. Do not come on this channel, start talking about flat earth. I'm done. I'm blocking them. It's a psyops to derail the truth movement. It's a psyops to discredit the truth movement. Sorry, that's a fact. There are innumerable experiments you can do yourself that will prove that the earth is semi-spherical. It's probably a tube torus. There may be holes at the poles, but what it definitely is not is frickin' flat. We do not live in a snow globe. And I'm just going to go ahead and piss people off because I've had it with flat earthers coming on my personal wall on Facebook and on this channel and causing problems and saying, if you don't believe in flat earth, you don't believe in truth. Well, I would say if you believe in flat earth, you are easily duped and that you really have no business calling yourself a truther if you're going to fall for such an obvious psyops and lie. That's very easy to debunk. And what always happens is you debunk them and they go back to the script. You debunk them and they go back to the script. So anyways, spin is very important to the universe and how things form in this electric universe that we live in. I don't believe in the Einsteinian concepts of relativity and so forth. I think that that was a false path for science that moved us away from experimental physical data to where physics is based on experimentation rather than mathematics. And so spin is really, really, really important. And so the Sufis incorporate spin into their religious practice and to help them achieve a elevated consciousness. And I believe it has to do with the Kabbalah and the tree of life and moving your consciousness up through the physics now says there's 10 dimensions. It looks very much like the Kabbalistic concept of the tree of life. And so, yeah, Sufism, fantastic. Let's see here. Dave Greiner, big shout out, or Dave G Minor. Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you. You know, every little bit helps. I'm at like probably $54 now with Dave's help. And you got to get to 100 before you can cash out on YouTube. This is a labor of love. But I'm supporting a family, and I do this out of love. But I do things like have 2-part interviews where like the second half is given to patrons first. For example, part 2 of the Cynthia Schneider interview is still for patrons only, but it's going to be released on Monday for free for everyone. And I'll eventually do that with everyone. But I'm giving my patrons a first crack at thing the same way I give people who give me stickers. And Dave, if you have a question, I will answer your question priority. I just give those people a little bit of a, they get bumped up in the line in terms of getting to see second half videos when I do a 2-parter. Like the Peter Champu part 2 is going to be released on Monday for patrons, and then the Cynthia Schneider second half will be brought forward for everyone. So every little bit, that's less than a price of coffee that Dave sent me. But you know what? Thank you, Dave. Thank you so much, because just that little tiny amount, it makes a big difference if I get that from, just a handful of people every month. I mean, I'm getting paid the equivalent of like 0.0000001 cents per hour. I've spent thousands of hours on the show researching, getting guests, editing, and all the rest of it. And so I'm not paid anything. And I had someone have the brass to complain that the Cynthia Schneider part 2 interview was behind a paywall, even though it's going to be released publicly, and demanded that I immediately release it. And I'm like, wow, that is really entitled. No, sir, I will not be doing that. I will go ahead and honor my patrons and people who support the channel by giving them first access, but then everyone will have access eventually. I just think that's a very reasonable way of doing things. So thank you so much, Dave. Super appreciate it. It means a ton to me. Can you type of these names in the chat, please? I don't know what names you're talking about, good sir. So you need to tell me what the names are. Even if you misspell them, I'm sure I'll be able to figure out what you mean, but I don't know what you're referring to, sorry. Hey, it's Travis. I apologize if I got this wrong. Did you say that those that took the Jibby Jabby won? I absolutely in no way said that whatsoever. I said that most people who took it are probably, there's a good chance they're going to have super severe health problems. There's some spiritual impacts to it. If you have taken it, I highly recommend you look into Peter McAuliffe's protocol. I think Dr. Robert Malone has a protocol. There was a Dr. Zlenko protocol. You got to do things. I think it's nicotiniase or something like that. Let me see. If I can find that quickly, then I will share that with everyone. I did. Oh, no, I did not find what I wanted there. Well, anyways, it's nicotiniase or something like that. I'm not an expert in that, so I'll leave that to others. I absolutely did not say that those people who either implemented it or who took it won. Actually, they both lost. People who took it are going to, one way or the other, they're going to have to pay some kind of price. You can redeem yourself and you can heal your body. In fact, the angel said that in the future, there'll be released a complete fix, which implies to me that it fixes any kind of DNA, mRNA type long-term damage, but also removes all the spikes. There already exists various rudimentary protocols, but supposedly there's hidden elite cures that are much better. So no, I did not say that at all, Travis, quite the opposite. Better talk to Sam about flat Earth. Oh no, Sam doesn't believe in flat Earth. I just watched him say he doesn't believe in that to some dude whose show he was on. So I don't know. And if he does, yes, I'll have a chat with him about it. But you know what? I don't care if people believe it. I really don't. What I care is when they come on my wall or my channel and demand that I agree with them. I ain't doing that, homie. And do you not realize you sound just like the woke people who are saying, it's violence if you are silent on my oppression, and if you don't agree with me, then that's violence. You're evil and blah. It's that same kind of like messianic fervor, religious zealotry nonsense that you find in the woke community, that you find in the unhinged part of people who claim to be Christian, but I would argue are not Christian. This like dogmatic demand that others agree with you is the problem. I mean, I wouldn't mind having like like Sam's someone I trust and like. I'm sure we could have a reasonable discussion about it and it wouldn't get insane. But I just had to block a guy who I don't know how I got my friends list, but who he was pushing first terrain theory, which I'm somewhat open to. But I think that's actually a sophisticated trick that was rolled out for the pandemic. And flat Earth, he was just pushing it and just being a real raging a-hole about it. And I just finally blocked him. And that's like the 2000th interaction with flat earthers, being super hostile, super aggressive, demanding that I agree with them, never, ever, ever letting it fly that I put up a picture of a planet or anything that has to do with space or the globe or anything. They can't just let it pass, right? When I scroll down someone else's page and I see a flat earther, I go, oh God, and I let it pass and I move on with my life. If they would just give me the same benefit, I'd be totally into it. But it's so crystal clear to me that it's a psyops to divide the truth movement and to cause all kinds of problems and to waste an inordinate amount of time. I mean, look, I'm even wasting time talking about that. And on that note, I'm moving on. To be able to level up, basically, I think that was in regards to this. No, they're not. I think you grossly misunderstood what I was saying, that some people take on negative karma to burn and work through that in order to help the collective, and they take on a burden of karma themselves by being the bad guys in a certain existence, and then eventually that's a powerful thing for the soul to go higher if you can work through the karma of what you've done, which that's very tricky and many people don't. So it's a very risky thing. So I'm not sure if that's what you meant, but perhaps. Sam has been on his flat earth kick. Well, that's disappointing, but hey, okay. He had that one friend. I watched the show and Sam seemed to not be on that page, but he has a friend who has a very slick podcast who's all about flat earth. And it's just so frustrating to me because it's so obvious to me that it's a psyop and divisive thing. That's sad, but I'll give him a talk to. Flat Earth is just so insignificant in the big picture. Yeah, and like, why would the Molochians lie about? Here's the big one. Okay, so train theory, right? Okay, so that was put into place so Rockefeller could make a bunch of money on fake viruses. Hey, you came up with a reason for your vast 100-year conspiracy of train theory of viruses are just exomes and don't do any harm. I'm not saying in train theory and that you shouldn't eat healthy and exercise. Fucking duh. Of course you should do that. I'm talking about the extreme train theory. People say, I can go into a biosafety level 4 lab and lick a petri dish of Marburg virus and I'll be fine because it's just nothing. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, no. So that one, though, at least there's a profit motive. What's the profit motive for flat Earth? Insert Jeopardy, Final Jeopardy music. Because I've been waiting for like a decade for a flat earther to give me one reason why it benefits elites that doesn't tie back into some weird offshoot of Christianity that thinks that the earth is flat. Because in my experience, about 90% of flat earthers are Christians. Not all Christians are flat earthers, but my God, a huge amount of flat earthers are Christians, and they have that dogmatic mentality. Faith, 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 faith. Just keep regurgitating the same thing over and over again. And that's all that one needs to do. So Imagine we were in a snow globe, right? We're on snow globe planet, and everything we see up there in a telescope and all that kind of stuff, it's firmament or some nonsense trash. There's a weird Mobius strip that causes the southern hemisphere to see one set of stars and the northern hemisphere to see a different set of stars. And oh, the sun and the moon appearing to set. Oh, it's some weird light show nonsense trick. Like, like why are we even talking about this? Is my question. But again, what's the profit motive? There isn't a profit motive. Why are chemtrails a conspiracy? Well, they're changing the weather and or poisoning us, right? Boom. Why was JFK killed? Duh, Vietnam, the Federal Reserve. Why was the Federal Reserve hidden and Jekyll Island and all that stuff? Duh, banking. Why was Pearl Harbor allowed to get blown up? Duh, to get us into World War II. Why did 9/11 happen? Duh, all the stuff that's happened since then. Why did the economic crash? Any conspiracy other than fucking flat Earth has an immediate, obvious, intuitive reason why it exists. Not to mention that flat Earth would be the granddaddy, most mega, giga, ultra conspiracy involving millions upon millions of people over centuries across innumerable cultures, all agreeing to lie. And what's more, flat earthers are saying, I like 1400s Vatican. I think the 1400s Vatican is my friend. The pedophile Molochian stronghold of the Vatican pushed the geocentric model of the universe, which is critical in flat earth, for a long, long time. Why would the Molochians have burned at the stake Galileo if he was helping, or I mean, if he was okay, so they wouldn't burn. So if the earth is flat, right, then or I mean, if the conspiracy is that the earth is flat but that's hidden, wouldn't they have trumpeted Galileo everywhere rather than burning him at the stake? It drives me so much nuts. Literally nothing about it makes any sense. It just drives me utterly bonkers. Just imagine we're in the snow globe. That would be perfect for the Molochians. They would love that. And they would trumpet that and say, we're in charge. You can't escape. You're trapped in here and we run things. 100% that's what the Molochians would do. Now imagine that the humans have been off the planet. That human evolution has been interfered with by extraterrestrials. Imagine that there's ruins on the dark side of the moon. Imagine that there's ruins on Mars. Imagine that there's secret technology like anti-gravity and free energy. Those are all good reasons for NASA to lie. Just because NASA lies about stuff does not mean the planet's flat. It's just so insanely enraging to me that we're even discussing this in 2023, and yet here we are. And so I'm done with flat Earth. Yeah, F flat Earth. Yeah, flat Earth intervention for Sam. Yeah, I'll be much nicer to him than that because I love Sam. He's fantastic. Hey, it's Travis. I apologize I got this wrong. Oh, we already said that. We saw that one. What do you think of Göbekli Tepe and why it was seemingly intentionally buried? Great question. Yeah, I believe that Göbekli Tepe was intentionally buried to intentionally create a time capsule. A time capsule that had indisputable astronomical alignments that showed that the structure had been created when it had, and that it's all focused on the part of the sky where it seems that either there's some kind of signal, if you believe the micronova theory, which I'm going to talk about that with David Van Doren if we ever do our Electric Universe series. David, if you're watching, please, brother, let's get some on paper for the love of gravy. But if you believe in the micronovas, the Robert Schoch theory that the sun periodically puts off a micronova, which resets everything, or you believe in the Graham Hancock, I'm trying to think what the other guy's name is, that big guy with the deep voice who looks like the big wizard guy from Harry Potter. What's his name? Randall Carlson. If you believe the Graham Hancock Randall Carlson theory, it's a section of the sky from which comets and meteors and stuff come. And so they wanted us to be keyed in on that. It's pretty clear to me that they were trying to get people keyed into a specific period, a specific slice of the sky during a specific period of time in order to transmit a message to us, likely related to these global cataclysms, which Göbekli Tepe seems to be created directly after the global cataclysm that coincides with the end of the Golden Age and the fall into the Silver Age. All right, Natokinase. Yes, hey, Shamjack, how's it going? Yes, that was the word I was looking for Jibby Jabby, for the arm pokey. The names of the non-dualistic teachers you spoke about is what I meant. Oh, yeah, sure. Here, I'll put that up. So, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Ramana Maharshi, Papaji, and currently alive, David Waldman, who I sat with. He's in Portugal now, I believe. And Adyashanti. So I'll put these up just for a second. So these are the non-dual teachers. All right. So then let's go back. Let's see. And thank you, Relic. I saw that you gave me a super chat, looks like. Okay. Well, I think Flat Earth has co-opted electric universe theory and confusing the two. Yes! Yes, they're trying to steal electric universe theory and warp it and fuck it up. Electric universe theory requires spin, for Christ's sake. So infuriating. Sorry. In case you haven't noticed, this has become a pet peeve of mine. I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, I had a friend that I actually blocked him because I got sick of him talking about it. I wish I could find him and buy that man a beer, because he said to me, or to everyone, because he relentlessly pounded the table, he said, Flat Earth is going to destroy the truth movement. Flat Earth is a psyops. Flat Earth is destroying rationality and reason. He was saying this 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even 7. And I was just like, why does this guy keep talking about this fringe theory nobody believes in? Nobody believes that shit. Only morons would believe that. There's no way that someone with an above room temperature IQ would buy into Flat Earth. Like, that guy's just, he's the, whatever, that little red hen or whatever, where the skull's flying. The sky is falling, right? And oh no, he was a prophet of doom. I should have listened. Flat Earth is a plague upon the truth movement. Advaita Vedanta, baby. Don't you know that we'll always be loved? Oh, yeah, for sure. It's clearly AstroTurf, Flat Earth. Oh, 100%. Heather R. Thoughts on the sky and our sun different lately? Ever since last year, the sun seems insanely strong. I burn like crazy. It's white rather than yellow. Yes, we've been talking about this a bit on this channel, actually. Peter Shampoo and I talked about that in the most recent geomancy conversation I had. I also talked with some guest I had before that about this. I don't know. I think I talked to Cynthia Schneider about that. It's a question of, is it a Mandela effect thing or is it geoengineering? I'm kind of guessing it's geoengineering. The third, more hopeful option is that the sun is changing electromagnetically. And as it changes electromagnetically, it's getting ready to do something different and to put a different energy out that's going to very much affect consciousness on Earth. So that would be the positive spin on that. The negative spin being it's, from geoengineering or some kind of Mandela effect to where, I remember a yellow sun when I was a kid that was much more gentle, like you say, Heather. Thank you for your comment. All right, 117 Gunger. It's flat and hollow, but also round. Yeah, I think I can agree with that. It's flat experientially. It's hollow physically. It's at least deeply honeycombed, but I actually am very open to the theory that there's holes at the poles, but also round. Yeah, it's a tube torus, it seems. Okay, Relic. Always a good time. Thanks, brother. Thank you, brother. And thank you to any of you and all of you who contribute to the channel. Like even $2, $1, whatever. Like it all adds up. It makes a difference. It'll allow me to eventually tap into my massive haul from the channel of $52 currently or whatever it is. You have to get 100 before YouTube will let you cash out. That must be nice, having like 10 million people who have just under $100. That's 50 or 500 million that YouTube gets to keep and spend and get a 0% interest loan from content creators like myself, because we can't unlock our own funds until we hit $100. which I've been doing this for like 2.5 years now and I haven't hit $100. To give you a sense of just how insanely profitable it is to be a content creator. It is insanely profitable for Google. I do this mostly as a labor of love, but it sure would be nice if this channel, through subscriptions, patrons, super chats, that kind of thing, started, making it somewhat worth my time in terms of, be a real revenue stream. That would be wonderful and amazing, and I love that. And people like Relic and Dave are helping that along, and thank you so much, brother. Josh Whitehall says, what would you recommend as the most important book to read? Oh, geez. Wow. Gosh, there's so many great books. I think it's got to be a spiritual book. So that rules out all the nonfiction books I love. I don't know, I kind of don't like and question who he hangs out with, but The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle really helped get me on the path of awakening and sort of being able to read spiritual books that were Buddhist or Hindu in nature. I Am That, which actually have a copy up here. I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj. This is the classic 1970s orange cover. That's the guy who translated it. Maharaj himself is quite a wild-looking guy. This book is incredible. Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I'm a big fan of, Adyashanti. So here's a great book, Falling into Grace by Adyashanti. It's beautiful. There's lots of books by Adyashanti that I really like and value quite a bit. It really kind of depends on where someone's state of consciousness is at. Here's Ramana Maharshi, the great sage of India who died circa 1950, who I believe is the purest spiritual teacher that's walked the earth in the past 100 or something years. Absolute legend. Amazing. I don't know. That's a deep question. I mean, you could argue the Bible. The Bible has a huge amount of amazing stuff in it. Should I show that? I just got an old school Bible from someone that's like, in fact, I'm going to get it just because it's cool looking. It looks like an ancient spell book. Weirdly, my mom got me this. Look how thick this bad boy is with these cool clasps is broken. It's from 1908. And it has this whole cool, I forget what you would call it, but where you sort of describe different, I forget what you call it. You have the definitions for the vocabulary. I forget what that's called, an appendix at the beginning, and it has all this stuff about ancient Near Eastern history. It's really fascinating. So if you're very highly advanced and you can cut through all the bullshit, the Council of Nicaea, and even the stuff that the rabbis did before where they manipulated their texts, especially before it got handed off to non-Jews, like that. If you can look at maybe the Ethiopian Bible is probably the purest version out there, and you have a high level of consciousness, you'll discover things like the Book of Psalms is a bunch of spells to summon angels. There's all manner of stuff in the Bible that's incredibly profound. So yeah, in some ways, the one that's most really started me on the path is the Bhagavad Gita. In reading that passage, fire cannot burn it, sword cannot cut it, water cannot drown it, and air cannot wither it. For the Atman is eternal, immortal, and changeless. This was in the scene in the Bhagavad, and that began my spiritual awakening as an adult. It's in the scene in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna and Arjuna are together, and Arjuna says he doesn't want to kill his cousins, and they're on a battlefield. He's on a chariot charging his cousin, and time stops, and Arjuna's driver, I forget what his name is, reveals himself as Krishna. And they have a whole conversation while the battlefield is frozen, and Krishna says he doesn't want to kill his cousin, and Krishna says, well, you can't kill who he truly is, because who he truly is, fire cannot burn it, sword cannot cut it, air cannot wither it, water cannot drown it. For he is the Atman, which is immortal, eternal, and changeless. And so that had a hugely profound impact on me. But again, it's difficult for the Western mind as a general rule to understand these Eastern texts. So, there's lots of great books by like Rudolf Steiner. He's someone I have a tremendous deal of respect for. He was a Christian mystic. He had anthroposophy. Theosophy is kind of weird, but it has a weird background, weird intrigue involved in it. But there's some good nuggets in there, mostly repackaged stuff that Helena Blavatsky put in. But I like Rudolf Steiner much better. So let's see, what does Oppenheimer say here? No, sorry, I accidentally hit enter. Yes, you did hear that. Okay, now that you wrote this correctly, meaning the opposite of what you wrote initially. Sorry to be a jerk, but this is literally the opposite of what you initially wrote. No, they can't. You can reject it on a spiritual level. In a number of different episodes, I have explained like what you can verbally say to do that. I might maybe do a mini episode just on this, but you just say something, something like this. You'll say something like this, and you can just phrase it how you want, but something like, take a few breaths and relax, and then get into feel the power rises in you, and concentration, say, by my divine sovereign free will, I hereby reject, dissolve, and renounce all karmic and energetic bonds that have occurred by me taking the seed of the void, the seed of Moloch. I reject the seed of the void. I reject the seed of Moloch. I reject all aspects of it. I took this under duress without full understanding. I was forced to because of my job or my family or whatever it might be. And by my divine sovereign free will, I now step out from that karmic burden and step into resonance with the Most High. And then you can begin the path to redemption. There's always a path to redemption. There's always a path to redemption. And then you just have to deal with the physical. The karmic can be dealt with fairly simply with words similar to what I just said, that you can phrase in a way that makes sense for you. And it just needs to be really earnest. And you can reject the spiritual problems of having taken that a lot more easily than the physical. The physical are going to be a lot more difficult to address. And even the spiritual, there is still a little bit of a karmic burden from having kind of failed the test. I don't know how to put it better than that. But I get that a lot of people had a gun to their head, metaphorically speaking, financially, family pressure, like whatever. There's definitely a way that you can redeem yourself spiritually to where it will have very minuscule impact on you spiritually. The physical is a little bit more of a tricky thing. And that's that natokinase and whatever, and Dr. Robert McCullough and the Zelenko protocol for dealing with the spikes, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. I know this person isn't, I don't know if they're trying to trigger me, but come on now, that's not true. At least I hope that's not true. You want to be an astrologer, for crying out loud. Get out of here with that. I think that she was just messing with me. Oh, I was being silly. Thank you, Ian, for reading my comment. I'm actually completely torn by what the Earth is, but I want to believe so hard it's round. Well, I mean, I don't have to really think about it much. Just get something spinning and drop oil into it. It forms a globe. Boom. Done. Taken care of. There's a billion things you can do. In fact, I'm actually going to put this little clip up if I can figure out how to do it, which I think I'll be able to do. Okay. So let's see if I can do this. And this is for all you flat earthers out here. This is a flat earther attempting to debunk that the earth is curved. I'm kind of excited about this, I'm not going to lie. I guess I have to go not now. Not sure why this is not letting me do it. Let me try again, because I really want to share this if I possibly can. All right, share screen, select window, sure. And then we'll switch to this. Oh my God. Okay, I think I got to do this, allow, move this bad boy. Here we go. I got to take the sound back on. We'll restart it. Let's see. Hopefully it'll work. Oh, is it not working? Darn it. Well, I will include this link down below, but basically this flat earther is convinced he can prove that the world's flat, and he has a friend way across a lake, and they do this light experiment, and then they end up busting their own belief in that they show conclusively that the earth does indeed have curvature, which of course it does. So there's, I mean, it's provable that the earth is round. Flat earth requires belief. Some form of spherical earth requires observation. Just go to the southern hemisphere and explain to me why they have the Southern Cross and we have the Big Dipper. It's nonsense. There's no Mobius strip sky and then we're surrounded by ice. It's just laughable. All right. Wow, thank you for the suggestion. Cool Bible. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for all you do, Ian. Much love to you and all the rest of you wonderful viewers. Thank you, Ian. Just listen to, oh yeah. Hey, David, how's it going? Brilliant. Thank you again. You're very welcome. So this is another way that people can support the channel, and that's very tangible, is that I teach people angelic magic. In fact, I have a class coming up here later today. It's already well into it, but I'm going to be offering another one here soon. And for me, angelic magic was what broke me through after decades of spiritual searching. You know, I tried shamanism and psychedelics and non-duality and some new age stuff and even like more ancient esoteric stuff. And then I started doing angelic magic and boom, everything changed for me. Everything's so much better now. I also am a Vedic astrologer, which is what David's referring to here. And so that's the astrology of ancient India, where you can see the karmas of your life. And there's a natal chart for 40 and under, and there's a Navamsa chart for 40 and over. I actually am doing a 2-part chart for David's wife. And so thank you so much. Yeah, it can be really profoundly helpful for people who need guidance. And you can find a link all over my page on booking a reading with me. And that's one of the best ways you can help the channel, and you get, you know, really powerful, actionable, helpful information about your karma and what you're here to do, if you have any questions about that. And so, yeah, thank you so much, David. And it's an honor doing Heather's reading. So thank you so much for that. 22 dropout. Thank you for addressing that. Not sure what you're referring to, but you're very welcome, good sir. Have you looked at what archaics and, man, this guy has been coming up so much. So no, I'm just going to have to look this guy up, because you're like the 70 trillionth person talking about this Jason Brashears and archaics guy. I heard he talks a lot about the simulation theory, which I'm not into that. That's just a dead materialist technological conception of Maya and Gnosticism. It's just it's dark. It's what do I like to call it? Let's see. I got to think the full title I use. Dead materialist techno dark Gnosticism. And that's simulation theory for me. It's plays right into the hands of the Molochians, in my opinion. That said, I've heard this guy's brilliant and has all kinds of great stuff to say about all kinds of great stuff. So I just got to look him up. So no, don't know Jason Brashears, but you were like the 700th person in a very short period of time that's mentioned him to me. So I'm going to have to look into him. Sorry, I don't have more information. Phoenix event. Yeah, I did read a friend of mine, Casey, I don't know if Casey, if you're watching now or later, a friend of mine named Casey, she said that he talks about these Phoenix events. I mean, it's interesting because, you know, like Putin and Xi just came out and talked about how they're participating in a once in a 100-year event. What they're talking about is the end of the dollar as the global reserve currency. You know, is there more to it than that? I don't know. There's definitely something weird about these star forts and, you know, these, you know, like the Chicago World's Fair, these World Fair things that happen, you know, I know it has something to do with this reset theory. There's definitely something to that, but I don't know. I just haven't gone deep enough down that rabbit hole. The Tartaria thing itself doesn't ring true to me, but that there's some kind of ancient civilization thing. There's some evidence that's pretty compelling about that. I don't really know what to think, and I haven't gone deep enough on it to make an educated that I can't have an educated discussion about it. Okay. Yep. All right. Let's see. Halfwise. Ian, will you have my babies? Disclaimer, I'm a straight male. Yeah, bro. That very much works with the kind of the very beginning theme of this episode. Thank you, brother. I know what you mean. You're just being like super awesome, but it is kind of funny. When I first read that, I was like, Ian, we have my babies. And I was like, well, probably not. But let me see what else. And then I'm like, oh, definitely not. Cannot. Literally cannot. And I know I'm oppressing you by saying that, but that's funny. But thank you, Halfwise. You're very appreciated, bro. All right. I hope you do offer another class. Couldn't do it this time. We'll try for it next time. Oh, yeah. I'm actually, the angels have kind of told me that I need to up my game on that and that I can't just be offering it 3 times a year, that I need to sort of offer it not constantly, but often. That one of the main things the angels want is the spread of angelic magic. So I'm definitely going to be offering another class very soon. Probably about 2 or 3 weeks from now, I'm going to offer it. I probably should time it after my Sam Tripoli thing to get people in there, although maybe they'll be mad about flat Earth. All right. I don't like archaic. CIA agent, I think. Interesting comment. I'm sure it's just a matter of time as this channel gets bigger before I'm Illuminati, and here, I'll just help everybody out. You can get some still shots from that and then make it up that I'm Illuminati and whatever kind of nonsense. So I sometimes get leery of like everyone's an agent, everyone's up to no good kind of thing, But that said, there's definitely a lot of disinfo agents that have bigger platforms. But I've worked too damn hard, and the growth has been far too slow on this platform for me to be an agent. Plus, I have yet to receive that round earth shill. That's the big money, is the round earth shilling. That's where the really big money lies. I haven't got my paycheck yet. So anytime you guys want to cut that for me for my round earth shilling. His history is incredible regardless of his belief on simulations. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing about this guy. He sounds like it's a baby bathwater situation that I don't want to throw out the baby of all his great research on history with the bathwater. Maybe I disagree on some speculative point on the nature of the universe, right? Like the truth movement really needs to have what I believe the template for us should be is pyrrhic skepticism. That is, you allow for anything and you burn away all that's not true. That's where the pyrrhic comes in, right? So you're skeptical in the sense of you come in going, okay, show me something, right? And I'm going to tell you right now, I would not pass pyrrhic skepticism myself. If I were to be watching my show and I wasn't me and I listened to me, Ian, say, I talked to the angels and whatever, well, I can allow for that to be true, but unless I myself then have personal interactions with the angels, right, as this third-party viewer, I can't actually prove that. I do find a direct experience to be kind of like the end-all be-all in terms of empirical evidence. And that includes for me mystical experiences that others don't experience. So from my point of view, everything I believe passes my own personal test of pyrrhic skepticism. But I do understand, ironically, that when I talk about working with the angels and so forth, that someone else is a pyrrhic skeptic can't accept that other than as an article of faith, or at least as a possibility, and that they would need to go and I encourage you all to do this, they would need to go and look into some of the spiritual claims I make and create conditions so they can have that direct experience. For example, studying angelic magic. Now, not everyone can hear the angels the way I can. That comes with the ability of clairaudience, which I happen to have clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. And so I just happen to have those gifts. So this is a lot easier for me. I also think that, or I know that I've had past lives as an angelic magician and a Vedic astrologer before. And so all this stuff comes very easy to me. But I sort of earned it in past lives. But I think that as a general rule, the truth movement should have an idea of pyrrhic skepticism. That is, we allow for any possibility. I mean, some of the stuff that to me is clearly true, things like angels exist and deities exist and black magicians run the world and stuff like that. Those are all require a very open mind to believe in them. But all of those things for me have proof. Again, some of them are direct experience, but others are based on research, right? Like, for example, the fact that dark magicians run the planet and that's the nation black nobility, that's based in pragmatic research. not it's not experiential. But I think we should all have that attitude, and that way we can allow for things like I can go, is flat Earth real? No, fucking of course not. That took me 2 seconds to figure out. But I can have an open mind about, for example, terrain theory. I'm not sure what to think about terrain theory, this belief that viruses don't cause harm. I'm 98% thinking that it's false, but and that it just happened to start gaining traction about a decade before the pandemic, which was right when the Rockefeller lockstep document came out, and they were starting to really, really, really prep for the pandemic. So I'm of the personal belief that it's to divide the truth movement, but I allow for the possibility. I just haven't had the time to do the incredible amount of research required to look into the terrain theory. Just to give an example of that sort of pure skepticism attitude we should have. And therefore, I can listen to Jason, listen to what he has to say, Jason Brashears of Archaics, and take what resonates and makes sense and leave the rest. And that's what everyone should do with this channel. Don't take what I say as some kind of ultimate truth. Look for yourself. Does it make sense? Does it resonate with me? And if it makes sense and resonates with you, awesome. Take that on board and use it. And hopefully it's useful and helps you and gives you a richer and more meaningful life that helps you have a more positive, hopeful attitude. And if something doesn't resonate with you, man, this guy believes in round earth. What an idiot. Right? I think all the flat earthers have tuned out by now, but if there's any still there, you don't have to agree with me on flat earth, and maybe the other things I say resonate with you, right? So I think that's the way everyone should work. You should go out there and do your own research, but be discerning, right? Not just research, not just take on anything that's against the mainstream is automatically correct. That's going to lead you to tons of contradictory positions that just don't make any sense. He doesn't resonate with me at all, says Susie. Yeah, good. So don't take on anything he says. Jess S. Hi, Ian. I had a life-changing vision of Archangel Michael in 08. I'm curious what exactly your angelic class consists of exactly. Hey, Jess S. That is a great question. So I teach Solomonic, and I'm going to actually have to wrap things up here shortly. And there's a super chat here in a second from 22 Dropout that I'm getting to. Sorry, 22. I definitely getting that before we get off. And I just got another super chat. I will definitely, from here on out, I'm pretty much only answering super chats. I'll just say that. But I do want to answer this one from Jess. I haven't seen her before, I don't think. And so I want to answer for that reason as well as what she's asking here. So I teach angelic magic. And right now I'm teaching just basic Solomonic magic. I'm teaching out of a book that already, that somebody else wrote. But I found it to be very empowering for me. And what it is that it's essentially a more sophisticated, focused method of prayer. I mean, I actually think prayer is magic, right? And that magic is refined prayer would be one way of writing it. And so you basically are communing with the angels to ask for the angels to assist you in various areas of your life. And these angels, literally their purpose is they all have various different powers under their purview. Literally their purpose is to help humans in a way that has to do with the various powers they have. For example, I'm working right now with the angel Menekel. And Menekel has, among other things, the power to give good, healthy sleep. And so I'm doing an 11-day ritual with Menekel where I summon him every day during the hour of Jupiter. And then Menekel is helping me have a good night's sleep. Okay, but then, a couple of things. Angels won't grant your magic if it's disharmonious. Demons will. You ask a demon for money, the classic example I like to use is you ask a demon for money and say you have a low-grade opiate addiction, like you have a Vicodin addiction because you hurt your back, right? And you have a mother who has a very large life insurance policy. And you do demonic magic and you go, hey, demons, I really want a bunch of money, like say $1 million, right? And I want it right now. And the demons will say, are you sure you want that money? And you'll say, yeah, demon, that's why I went to this elaborate process of summoning you and blood and sigils and stuff. And you go, and the demon will go, you want that money regardless of the consequences. Is that correct? And you'll say, well, yeah, demon, that's why I summoned you. Rah, rah, rah. Hurry, I want my shit. You're getting your Cartman voice on, right? Because it's selfish magic. And they go, so you're certain you want this money? Third ask, right? And then you go, yeah. And they go, you got it. The next day your mom dies, you get $1 million. You feel guilty because you put 2 and 2 together and realize that you killed your mom with your black magic asking for money. Now you have an opiate habit. Pretty soon you OD on fentanyl and die. And the demons are like, oh yeah, more chaos, more suffering. It's everything we want. Plus we now have them, that we have their soul is somewhat entrapped in the really heavy karma of black magic. By contrast, in that exact same situation, if you were to say to the angels, right, you have the opiate addiction, the mother with the thing, you say, I want $1 million and I want it right now. The angels would look at you, and because they're higher dimensional beings, they would be able to see the likely paths of your life. And they would go, nah, we're not going to give that to you. You need to deal with that trauma and addiction first. Because if we were to give it to you now, you would immediately become an addict. Your life would become less harmonious. So we're vetoing that magical request. They simply will not grant your request. Plus, they wouldn't kill your mom to do it, right? Like, you'd get a job offer or something else, right, in order for that money to come to you. So you ask for the same thing from demons. Demons will just give it to you, no matter what it is. They treat you like an adult. Angels treat you a bit more like a kid, like you need the training wheels, like maybe you're not the wisest of beings. And so they will only grant your request if it's harmonious, if it's going to make your life more harmonious, if it's going to help you to step more into alignment with the Most High and the angels. And for me, that was where I started. And then I started working with the archangels, and I'm going to be teaching an archangelic magic class coming up in the summer. When I started working with the archangels, I suddenly realized I didn't feel comfortable. I do now, weirdly. I didn't feel comfortable at the time sort of telling angels what to do, right? Because they're these beautiful beings of light. But I then, because of that feeling, I actually do feel okay now because I understand it's asking them to do their purpose. It's a bit like feeling bad sitting at a table and having a waiter bring you food, right? Because it's like a servant kind of thing. It depends on your attitude, right? And so I now don't feel bad, but I did then. And so I said to the angels, and I'm so glad I did, I asked Archangel Raziel. I said, Archangel Raziel, how can I serve the celestial current? And he said, now you're asking the right questions. And then Archangel Raziel taught me how to get a hold of the principalities, which are the key to the higher angelic spheres and higher angelic choirs. And then I went through all of them, and I had to do increasing levels of acts of charity. And then eventually, at some point, it tipped, and it moved from external acts of charity and helping people to more and more working on my own internal nature in areas where I had blind spots, and healing my trauma, and integrating my dark masculine, and integrating my dark feminine. And eventually now I've worked all my way up, and now I work with the seraphim. But it took over a year of near daily practice of where I was doing things like 33 days straight of 90-minute magical rituals. I put in the work and the dedication, and I made the changes in my life. I quit pornography, among other things. I had a 27-year addiction. I'm not proud of it. I'm proud I overcame it, though. But I tried everything to quit that addiction, and the angels were the ones that helped me. And my life has become much more harmonious. I'm much happier. I'm much calmer. I'm much less likely to get angry. I'm much more charitable. I'm much more living for myself in a beautiful way of joy, and for my family and for the people of this earth because of what I've done with the angelic magic. But it started with this basic Solomonic magic, which is what I'm the class that I'm talking about. So thank you so much for that question, Jess. I hope that answered your question. I am going to need to wrap up soon, and my voice is failing me, and I still have to teach a 2.5-hour magic class later, so I do need to end. Yes, would love to hear your thoughts on Archaics Jason Brashear. Oh, thank you so much for your super generous donation here. My goodness, thank you, 22 Dropout. Beautiful, wonderful. I so appreciate it. It really just, it means so much to me. It's not about the amount, although this is a wonderful and substantial amount, but it's just the giving back is so nice, because this is really a labor of love. But I would love to be doing this channel as one of my major things. And there is something amazing that's happening, and Put Out Good Thoughts viewers, that I'm offered this consulting position. But I've been offered a potential consulting position. I just haven't locked it in. And if I'm able to lock that in, I will have a lot more free time to work on this channel. But another way I can get more free time to work on this channel is when people support it, like 22 Dropout is doing here. And thank you so much. I just don't know enough about this guy to comment, unfortunately. But I tell you what, especially since you gave money, I'm going to do some research on this guy, and then I will have a future commentary on it. And then I'll be able to answer this question. And I'm sorry that I don't have more than that. It sounds to me like he's a mixed bag based on some different things. I mean, most people probably consider me a mixed bag, right? I've heard myself described as batshit insane, but very interesting was how someone described me in some forum. Maybe not 100% wrong. There's a fine line they say between genius and madness or whatever. I don't know that I want to say other than maybe the madness is there, but maybe some hints of genius too. But I just don't know this gentleman well enough to really comment on him, but it sounds like he does great work on history, if nothing else. And I will check him out, and I'll get back to that. And thank you so much, brother. Or sister. I assume it's brother. I very much appreciate you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, this is a good thing. If you think you know shit, then you probably don't. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good question for me. One of my favorite intellectuals, and also a very funny and cool human being, Robert Anton Wilson, which I really feel like everyone should look into that gentleman. He's done some great work. He wrote Illuminatus Trilogy, which is an awesome book. Let me see if I have that handy. I do not see my copy of Illuminatus Trilogy. I'm not sure where it is. It should be right there on the shelves. Maybe I let someone borrow that, come to think of it. Anyways, he said that certainty is the death of reason, and I tend to agree with that. And it's one of the things that infuriates me about flat Earth is because I am quite certain about it. And then I try and remind myself not to be certain, but I just, that theory drives me nuts. So anyways, Mr. Oppenheimer says, is reincarnation tied strictly to this Earth? How can we reincarnate elsewhere? Great question. The answer is no, although it's likely if you're here that you'll reincarnate here. I have been told that when everyone who's currently incarnated disincarnates, they will be offered to, I think this might be people who don't resonate with the Molochian energy. I'm almost positive that was part of it. So people who don't resonate with the Molochian energy, right? So minus the so-called NPC folks, right? And the very evil people. Everyone else, when they disincarnate here, will be offered a chance to reincarnate here in the Bronze Age and start a cycle, Bronze Age, Silver Age, Golden Ages, etc. Or you can reincarnate onto a different planet. People who have reached a high enough level of consciousness will be offered an additional mode of incarnation that allows them to retain some level of their current understanding and knowledge into a future incarnation, a bit like the perfecting of the solar body esoteric concept. Just a few more here. Thank you for considering having my hypothetical. I wasn't really considering it that deeply, but yes. On a serious note, do you think the Ukrainian-Russian situation will reach some sort of global war, scary climax, or do you think it will fizzle? I don't know. There's a super incredibly important ley line that runs right through the middle of Kiev that I've been told by the angels, the Molochians and Luciferians are fighting tooth and nail over, and that's actually a big part of what that war is about. That kind of throws it in there. I do know that the Luciferians and most all other earthbound deities, even like some of the lower qliphothic spirits that aren't Moloch, are all against any kind of war that has mega casualties. Like nobody wants mega casualties except for the Molochians. They all want, like the Luciferians, they don't want to like take over from the prior landlord and the house is burned to the ground, right? They want to have like everything in tip-top shape when they take over so they can make use of that global civilization and high technology. They don't want to reset. The Molochians would be just fine with burning everything down around them. Of course, the Most High faction don't want people to suffer. The Hindu pantheon, the Nordic pantheon, all those pantheons are very alarmed about the chance that all their worshippers might die, so they're all against it. So my gut tells me no. But there is a tremendous amount of tension along that ley line, which emanates actually out of the Great Pyramid. Watch the Peter Shampoo interview. Real quick shout out to my man Zizai Oppenheimer, $10 sticker, brother. Wow, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Great questions in here throughout. Jess S said thank you. Susie Gemini said wishing you success as a consultant. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. All right, well, much love, everyone. I will leave with one final thought. There are powerful forces working behind the scenes, both Molochian, of course, Luciferian, of course, but there is a lot more action among Most High affiliated people than I had believed a few months ago. And I can't go into it, but I now have some firsthand confirmation of that. I can't go into it at all, but there are many things afoot, and as Gandalf said to Frodo and Moria, there are other forces at work than the will of evil, and so remember that. Much love to you all, and I will catch you all soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, bye-bye.